Good afternoon. I'm Richard Felton-Thomas. I am part of the Humane Sport operations team. The group that I just mentioned, they're going to join me on stage in about 10 minutes' time. It's my job over the next 10 minutes just to talk you through Humane R and what we're doing in Humane Sport, why it matters, what it means for the industry, and why we think it's the biggest AI infrastructure play in all of global sport. So I'll take us through the slides. I'll just let the back team know the clicker's working, if you had a problem with that. So Humane first. I'm sure many of you know who Humane already are, but I'll just touch on it for those that don't. So it's a PIF-owned company delivering full-stack AI solutions across the kingdom and for the globe. This is from compute to cloud to advanced models to LLMs, creating a complete infrastructure for AI wherever it needs to be deployed across the world. And Humane Sport, it's a subdivision that was launched only in February 2026, using all of that humane infrastructure and operating systems and compute to develop solutions specifically for the sports industry. And I want to be clear on something very particular. This is not about creating products for a single problem. This is about the actual infrastructure that sits underneath everything at sports level, particularly when it comes to AI and sports technology. And I'm going to talk you through a little bit how that looks. There's a few slides here just around the product, how we're developing, how we're building it. Now, I'll be clear here, everyone talks about AI, particularly in the sports industry. So you've got whether it's a partnership announcement, whether it's a new product launch, whether it's on stage, ironically, at a conference like this, AI is on everybody's mind. But actually what we're seeing at the moment is lots of people are building siloed products to fit one particular problem that already existed in the industry. What's missing is an ecosystem that connects all the different AI layers and all the different products and technology that sits across a whole club, federation, a stadium operation, a venue. All these things are disconnected today, and it's time that all is consolidated so the data that comes into those systems are compounded over time and becomes more valuable. And let me kind of show you how we're approaching that. So in the middle, we've got Humane Sport, and Humane Sport's got a core set of products and technologies, and I'm going to show you that a little bit more on the next slide. But as an infrastructure array around that, we are backed by Humane. So obviously Humane and what they're doing on the global stage and everything that they're developing, that gives us our superpower to know that we have the right to play in the sports division. So everything that Humane delivers, we will build on top of, particularly for sports organizations and rights holders. And around that, we will have what's called our operating systems, again, built on AI or Humane's infrastructure. But these operating systems will be particular operating systems that are there to serve the needs of certain parts of an organization. So whether that's for coaches and sports scientists, to whether it's the venue management teams, to whether it's the commercial teams, to those that are interested in digital and fan engagement through their apps, we will have an operating system that's there to solve their needs. But crucially around that is the insight layer. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in a moment, and the four people who join me on stage will much more adept at talking to this than me. But the insights layer around that is right now, everyone collects a lot of data, and for what? It isn't always used in the right way. It's not always giving meaningful insights to the people that are buying and deploying this technology. So actually generating insights that create actual operational change or help you win on the pitch is what is missing in the industry today. And that's all there to serve, whether it is the clubs or federations, whether it is those venue operations, whether it is commercials and their partners, whether it is that digital fan or it's the game day fan, is this whole ecosystem of products are going to be there to serve the whole stack across sports. And like I said, I'll just touch on this briefly. I think that there's more experienced people at Humane than myself that can talk more about these products, but Humane is moving at such a pace. This is not just theory, it's not just ideas. There's real products in the market that are serving federations and clubs today across multiple different industries. Just at FI recently, there's the whole Humane One platform was launched. That's huge for our industry and already been adopted across the kingdom and the globe. And I won't talk through all of these different products now, but I think it's definitely worth your time to investigate what those products are, what they do for you, and what they do for the industry today. But like I said, all of that from the last slide, we build on top of, particularly for the sports industry. So what you see behind me are the 6 operating platforms we're building. The Performance OS is there for the coaches and sports scientists and the players, through to the Fan OS, so when you go and visit a stadium or a venue. We've got Danny from Surge today that will talk to this in better detail than I will. There's a Stadium OS and there's a Player OS, which is there to look at the whole talent pathway of a player. So from being in school to developing all the way through to hopefully playing elite sport or just playing grassroots or amateur sport on the weekend. But critically, top right corner, we've got the Data OS. That Data OS is the connective intelligence layer that brings all of these into one platform. So every single bit of data you get across a different operating system is connected, and it's just compounding the value for whoever owns that data. So how did we get here? Humane Sport, as I said, launched in February 2026, and we launched with an acquisition, a majority acquisition of Humane's first European acquisition, company called AI.io. I'm from AI.io originally, so CEO at AI.io, so I can say it best. Why was it AI.io that helped to launch Humane Sport? It's because actually our core mission and what we set out to do from day one was a great synergy and a great match for Humane and Humane Sport. And really what that was about putting AI in the hands of everybody. And when I say everybody, what do we mean there? So one of the first products we built, and I'm going to show you some layers of this product in a moment, is we deployed our computer vision technologies into a mobile phone that allowed any kid from anywhere in the world to just download an app, analyze themselves, and get opportunities to play real elite level sport, get identified as talented, enter competitions, and just gain global access to sport directly in the palm of your hand. That synergy of putting AI in the hands of everyone on the planet to democratize access was the match that we had with Humane. So if we look at these products, just so you understand this a little bit more, I talked on a previous slide about the different operating systems we got. Academy OS is one of those. Academy OS is there to serve football academies, soccer academies, sports academies, where they've got young players that they're trying to identify as talented, and they're trying to develop that talent to be the superstars of the future. We've got a 2034 World Cup coming up in the Kingdom. We're very lucky to have Zayed from the strategy team from the Saudi Arabian Football Federation today as well. So he'll talk a little bit more about that talent pathway and how potentially these types of products could fill their needs. But just so you understand the technology, we've got 3DAT. So 3DAT is a collection of computer vision models and AI models and our biomechanics engine. This allows us to analyze human movement from any device. So we can turn your mobile phone or your talent into an analysis machine, which has not been done before, normally on big laboratories and big systems. So just take your phone out of your pocket and you can analyze the next future superstar of the Saudi Arabian national team. And we deployed that into something called AR Scout. AR Scout is the mobile phone app that over 147 countries now have young people that are using this app to analyze themselves and get themselves opportunities to play a high-level sport or just better themselves in sport. And then we've got AI Lab. These are physical infrastructure and hardware. We actually build high-performance facilities. It scales to schools. It can be for federations. It can be fan events. Wherever the athlete or wherever the fan is, we can build these facilities. But critically inside there, again, we put computer vision inside there, gold standard sports science test equipment. That's all happening in real time. And the key thing, all three of these, all connected to that one operating system, so we can, from end to end, serve the academy's needs. And so far, like I said, this is not just talk. It's not just what we want to do. This is live in the market, this Academy OS, and the products that are associated to those. So as I already mentioned, 147 different countries have young people inside there using our products today, as well as elite performers. We've had over 40 clubs and federations that are part of that ecosystem. Over 8 million metrics have been gained in such a short time since we come out of our beta. This will scale into the hundreds of millions, billions of metrics over the next 2 years. And we've had real success. Over 750 players in the last 2 years have now had real contracts, real trials, real opportunities to play pro sport for national teams, federations, and clubs. So we just continue that momentum with Humane Sport. And sovereign AI by design. This is really important. So I mentioned we got Ziad on the panel today. We're actively collaborating and working with the different federations and the different national teams to understand what this means for them. We're hearing the same problems quite a lot, how data is disconnected, products disconnected. Data, we're being served by companies outside of the kingdom that don't really think about sovereign AI and sovereign data as its core purpose. We're not just building on legacy systems here. We're not trying to integrate other people's things. This is sovereign AI by design. It's data with a purpose, and actually working with the likes of Saudi Arabian Football Federation to shape this and design this is we're very lucky to be able to do. And I'll just touch on the data as well, because I think, as I said at the top about everyone says AI, and it's kind of ironic, I'm on the stage talking about AI. Everyone talks about data too. Everyone talks about collecting data, but collecting for what? And that's something that we've started to learn with as the customers we work with is we're collecting data, but the purpose is not always very clear. So when you're working at our national kind of infrastructure level, we kind of look at it in two ways. There's what we need to do with the upstream data and the downstream data. So upstream, it's got to actually serve the purpose of the people that in deploying your products and using your products. So is it giving you new insight that helps you create better performance on the pitch? Is it giving us new insights that helps us change the way our stadium operations works and give a better fan experience? That's got to give you an insight. It's got to be meaningful. It's got to be purpose. It can't be data for the sake of data anymore. But then downstream is what's massively missing is actually how all the data compounds across your organization. Because you've got siloed products, if you have one ecosystem, one AI infrastructure, one ecosystem, what you can do is have all those data products now actually compounding at every single stage along the value chain. That means you can start to monetize that data with commercial, with rights holders. Again, we've got Danny from Surge who can talk to that a lot more on how data is starting to shape the investment thesis. And I'll come back to this just because I mentioned Danny there. So I mentioned, obviously, these 6 operating systems that we're building. Academy OS has already begun. There's a couple here that are already starting to work with clients as well. But this is very ambitious. There's a lot here, and you can't always do this on your own. It'll be a lot more expensive, a lot slower. And what we've done is we've partnered with Surge, because Surge give us the insights around how investors view these products and technology in the ecosystem today, what rights holders need, what the commercial impact is. So what you've got here is 2 PIF companies together, actually augmenting each other with their different expertise, their different specialisms to help create this ecosystem to make sure it truly serves an entire sports ecosystem. And where do we go from here? So before I bring everyone on the stage, I think what my closing message really is, what I don't want people to think from Humane Sport is it's a product list, or it's a feature set, and it's a feature list. Like I said, this is about scaling globally and systematically an AI infrastructure that serves global sport. And we use this a lot, is sovereign AI for global sport and for the end of limits. So thank you for listening to me just to brief you on what Humane Sport are doing. It's going to be much more interesting to have our guests on the stage. So I've mentioned a couple of times as we've gone through here, but I will collectively welcome to the stage. So we've got Leandro La Rosa. He is the current CEO of Optum Sports. He was the CEO of the Buenos Aires Olympic Youth Games, and he was the former director of digital at the IOC. We'll have Danny Townsend. He's the CEO of PIF Sports Investment and Surge. Ziad Arif from Saudi Arabian Sports Federation. He's part of the strategy team there. That will give us some great insights to how this investment that's coming into sport is actually helping what he's trying to build. And then we have Andrew Day from the strategy team at Humane Sport and the CEO of AI.io. So hopefully between those 4, we've got a great mix. But if you can give a short round of applause, and we'll welcome to the stage, and we'll take a seat. Thank you. Don't think they came. Here we go. We're on. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me on the stage. I introduced you, but I thought just to get us going, I think we should probably do the 60-second version of yourselves. What you do, where your position is in the sport ecosystem. So let's start at the end. So I've got a question for you, Danny, that I'm going to really launch into you first. So we might as well come this way, right? So Ziad, introduce yourself, please.
Thank you very much, Richard. Assalamu alaikum jami'an. Peace be upon you. First of all, maybe I would like to thank you for the invitation, thank everybody who was involved in organizing such an event. From my side, maybe a quick, brief introduction. So 17 years prior to joining the Federation, I was mainly focused in the financial sector. So it was mainly in internal control functions, governance, in terms of risk management, etc. We transitioned into corporate performance strategy, and after that, of course, realizing that it's all about data, always. There, we unlocked the dimension of data analytics, data science, and how we could leverage it in order to gain that competitive edge, and thus transitioning into one of the brilliant giga projects here, which is Diraya. And this is where we've, let's say, shifted gears, moved into a more ambitious role, leadership, into being forward-looking. And this really unlocked multiple dimensions, which drove my passion into football, getting the opportunity to really add to it as well. And this is where I got the opportunity to be part of the Saudi Arabian Football Federation, part of a great project, to contribute to it from two angles. One is the governance operating model, and which goes brilliantly hand in hand with the digital transformation that we're working on as well. So I'm truly blessed and honored to be part of this project, to be part of this great nation, and to be basically part of this talk as well, amongst great gentlemen here and audience as well.
Great to have you. Thank you. Mr. Andrew Day.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Andrew Day. I have the privilege of being wearing two hats, actually. One as the operating CEO for AI.io, and the other working as head of strategy for Humane, which is, quite frankly, a fabulous opportunity, given the ambition for Humane in the kingdom and indeed beyond. My background, I've spent 36 years, I worked out just before I came on stage, dealing with data, using AI and machine learning to transform businesses across various industry sectors. And so before data was cool and AI was even a thing, I think I was one of the guys. And now I have, I say, the privilege of running a business that brings together two passions. One is for the application of data, and the second is in human endeavor. And sports, of course, is all about human endeavor. So I'm very lucky to have the roles that I have.
Thanks, Andy. Mr. La Rosa.
Thank you very much. My name is Leandro La Rosa. I'm from Argentina. I started my Olympic journey in 2007, and then I had the privilege of being the CEO of the organizing committee for the Youth Olympic Games in Buenos Aires 2018 in my hometown. And after that, I became Director of Digital Engagement and Marketing Department of the International Olympic Committee. And I think that today we have a lot to discuss about how AI can help the development of sports.
Absolutely. Wonderful. And Danny Townsend.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks very much for having me along here today, and appreciate everyone attending. My name's Danny Townsend. I'm the CEO of Surge Sport Investments. Surge is the PIF's sport investment arm. We have an interesting mandate whereby we have a responsibility to not only get a return on capital for the PIF in our international IP investments, but also have a localization mandate to drive the sport economy domestically in Saudi Arabia. So obviously with data and digital being a really important part of the transitioning economics of sport more broadly, this topic is obviously one that is central to all of the investments that we make. So it's great to be here.
Great to have it. And considering we're at the Sports Investment Forum, so we will start with you, Danny. From the outside in, it certainly looks in our world that the capital flowing through sports now looks a bit differently in the last few years, where it was always franchises and media rights, and now we're seeing this big technology and AI play and infrastructure at its core, and how data needs to be used differently now. Has that thesis in your world changed? What's the landscape look like between, say, 3 years ago and today, and where's the money flowing now?
Yeah, look, if I take a step back and you look at the sport sector as an asset class, you'd be forgiven for not running a million miles. And the reason I say that is that when you look at any P&L of any company and their number one revenue line is in rapid decline, you probably would think about investing your money elsewhere, and that is sport. The media rights landscape has been in decline for the vast majority of sport assets in market. The big ones are still generating big money, like the NBA's recent deal, UFC's deal recently. So there is still money there, but it's different type of money, and it's coming from different sources than it used to traditionally. So what that means is that sport needs to really focus on its strengths, and its strengths are in a number of different areas, and one of those real key areas is the loyalty of its customers. You know, there are fans of sport all over the world that will prioritise where they spend their time with their sporting team that they love. And that loyalty is pretty unique to any sector. But unlocking the value of that customer loyalty is something that sport really hasn't done a lot of work on. So we're seeing a lot more focus on how sports work out that monetisation conundrum, particularly by setting themselves up to build direct-to-consumer relationships and leverage a lot of the innovation that's out there around personalisation and customising the way they communicate and engage their fans. So we see it as a really important pillar in the growth of sport. There are a lot of other things that I think sport has going for it that it doesn't necessarily think about a lot, and AI is another one where you're never going to replace the humanity of sport with AI or some form of it. I see AI having a real positive impact on the ability to engage fans with the product, but the product itself will always be sacrosanct, and that's not going to be the same for every sector. So I do think AI is going to have an enormously positive impact on our sector. And I think the live event experience is coming back again, and with coming out of COVID and the amount of time people spend on digital devices, I think the younger generation really want to attend live events, and that's great for sport as well. So it's not just about data and digital, it's going to be central to the monetisation of the industry going forward, but that presents a great opportunity for us all.
Wonderful, and I think actually there's a few things in there, and I think I'm going to work my way down here because I think there's a few anchor points, and I'd certainly love to come to data monetisation with Andy in the moment, given your specialist background. But Leandro, Danny talked there about the obviously AI now being able to reach more people and how we give experiences to fans and to athletes. With your background, your experience, you're obviously the CEO of the Buenos Aires Olympic Youth Games, and then through your role formerly with the IOC, you started to adopt technology and AI technology into that space. So the learnings that you've had over the years from very manual to very digital to AI, just talk everyone through kind of that experience and what you've seen evolve in that time frame.
Yeah, the big gap that I see today in federations and sports organizations is between ambition and real execution in relation to technology. What I mean is that we are all talking about that we want to take decisions, data-driven, but nobody has a whole pathway and a platform to interconnect all the different technologies that they want to use nowadays. But let me go back a little bit to year 2014, when we had the privilege and the opportunity to organize the Youth Olympic Games in Buenos Aires in 2018. In 2014, we said, okay, why don't we run a national talent identification that was never done in my country? So we went all around the country. We visited 14,000 schools, tested 700,000 kids, but we needed more than 2,000 coaches to be trained to do this type of testing. You can imagine the cost, you can imagine many things. And this is the way data looks like this is the report in 2015. So you can imagine how difficult it was for us to use it. But at the same time, I have to tell you that for Argentina, for my country, Buenos Aires 2018 was the best Olympic youth result in the history, thanks to that talent identification program that we put in place. Now, in 2024, when I was director of the IOC, and I was in charge of developing the Olympic AI agenda, I said, why don't we do the same thing, but using the technology that AI.io developed? So we put in place a team. We went together to Senegal. Why Senegal? Because Dakar is organizing the Youth Olympic Games too. In only 4 days, we were able to go all around the country, test close to 2,000 kids, and we found 46 that were amazing. So now, the National Olympic Committee of that country has 46 kids that they can really invest to develop. And today we are here talking about investment. And I think that there is a great opportunity today, starting in Saudi, now that Humane Sports have this technology, to run a program like that, for two main things. One is to give the most important thing to many kids in the country. There is an opportunity to be discovered. But the other thing is also that at elite sports, this data will help the national government, the National Olympic Committee, and many other entities like Surge and others to invest much better, because you will understand what are the real genetic capability of the people of this country. And you will never discover that if you don't apply a program like this with this type of technology, that today you can really be objective of what you have. Grassroots is one thing, and I think that the government is doing a fantastic job through Sports for All and many other initiatives that they have to reach everyone. But elite sports is different. Elite should be a very targeted and precise and efficient investment that we have to do. And this is the only solution that you have, and the great opportunity that Saudi has having humane sports here.
Great. There's something quite special still about a handwritten report, though, right? So I'm going to have to have a look at that later. I think that's perfect to come down to you, Ziad, as well, because what we're talking about here is actually how the ecosystem changing, how the investment thesis is changing, and what Leandro's seeing with AI maybe helping to scale things like talent identification. You're in it right now, right? So you're trying to build, you've got a huge mandate, you've got lots of objectives, you've got a World Cup coming, and you've got, I'm sure, technology partners and ideas coming from every single angle. So tell us what success looks like for you. What makes a good technology partnership, and what do you need it to do for your organization today?
Thanks, spot on, Richard. So I think from that lens itself, as I mentioned earlier, coming with a new perspective where passion meets professionalism, basically, from my end as well. I've always been a passionate football fan, but going into what they call normally the belly of the beast, understanding how everything is set up, how can we adopt technology, what are we doing currently? You have to go back to basics, and I agree with Leandro and the team were saying. We got to zoom out a bit, understand the core federation itself, its main objectives, how we're structured, and this is where I've highlighted that being in the opportunity of being part of the governance operating model really complemented and helped a lot with that initiative of that digital transformation. So understanding yourself as an entity, who you are, what are your main objectives, and then tying it with strategic objectives, initiatives, designing for the future, something scalable, sustainable as well. I think this is where we had to shift the minds, basically, shift that mindset, and this is where normally the difficulty occurs in change management or any transformation initiative. People, culture, this is something everybody's struggling with in all aspects, and across all sectors, we have the same discussions in regards to value realization of adopting technology, AI. What are the common issues? So far going into the federation itself, it's not that different, actually, when you look at other sectors. And when we're engaging as part of my individual consultancy role with other entities as well. Same problems, just, let's say, phrased or framed in a different manner. When we look at technology adoption within the federation itself, it's more siloed. We try to adopt technology to solve yesterday's problems. It's not really designing that foundation, looking at what should my focus be, and as what Danny said, how am I investing on the right technology, the right infrastructure itself? Is it scalable, sustainable for the future? And this is where we start to also look at our partnerships in a different manner. Because before it was a one-off trade where sell me a solution, as you've mentioned earlier, to solve a certain problem, technology problem. And technology was always a catalyst for efficiency and effectiveness, for organizational excellence. So let's shift the mindset right now to be part of the strategic ambition of our nation itself, Vision 2030, Vision 2040. We started from an exterior, let's say, landscape. We have great infrastructure and foundation built for us. It's time for us, the sports sector, to start aligning with that role, start making our dreams come true. And this is where we look at partners right now for partners of the future, paving that way forward rather than just solving yesterday's problems. So having an integrated ecosystem, as you've highlighted earlier, is quite essential. Making sure that the right people are using the right technology, they have the single source of truth, which everybody calls that data point, where they can make decisions quicker. So accelerating that process itself to help decision-making as well, and it takes a lot. We see it on the pitch as well, because the main product output is the team, the top 24, playing on the field. quick decisions. The coach has to make decisions. We got to equip the team also on the pitch. But I think what a lot of us are unaware of is that the team off the pitch, how can we accelerate and amplify? And I think a lot of the interesting discussions we had before this session was in terms of employment of let's say, adoption of technology or AI. You got many pillars or primary activities within the federation. I'll maybe speak more into, let's look at the talent development path or the elite player progression, that player pathway. You're talking about a population of 35 million, 18, let's say, million of eligible age playing football. We have proper infrastructure and foundation to tag each and every individual, understand their needs, put them on the right development pathway, and ensure that we are really fair with choosing and confident in choosing the top 24 that represents us as a nation. So this is just one example of adoption of technology that I believe could majorly change the game and how we're playing it right now, and setting up, as you mentioned, the team for the future, hopefully to play well in the 2034 World Cup, inshallah.
Absolutely. And I think I'm going to circle back to the adoption side of things in a moment, because you touched on an interesting point there. But I'm just going to switch gears slightly to you, Andy, and I make no apologies for a difficult question here. But you're building in the technology that the federations, the organisations around the world are demanding and needing and wanting, and that's global. But then you're also having to balance the fact that this is about sovereign AI and sovereign data as well for the kingdom. How do you balance that? Is there a trade-off there? How does that come together?
Thanks, Rich. Firstly, I think, and hearing from Leandro and Ziad is fantastic, because a lot of the challenges that we see excuse me, from a sports technology perspective are ones that they're now absolutely bringing to life. And I think where we start is that technology and infrastructure is an input into the process, right? It's not where the rubber hits the road. It's not where nations are changed. It's not where talent is identified. And so very much an enabling capability, super important to build the technology infrastructure to be able to run compute at scale, to store data, etc. But really, it's about, as both Ziad and Leandro said, it's about the outcomes. The outcomes for us is where the interest sits, and that's outcomes for clubs, for fans, for players. And we see it in lots of organizations. I think everybody thinks they're special, that they have a problem that, the boss says we need an AI strategy or we need a data strategy. Actually, they need neither of those things. What they need is a strategy that identifies the business problems or the issues they're trying to solve for, and address those through an AI mindset or a data mindset. So if you look at the AI agenda that Leandro led for the IOC, it was called the AI agenda, but it was very much rooted in what problems are we trying to solve for the IOC? How do we give a better experience for athletes? How do we find talent? How do we make sure that scoring is spot on, and so on? So very much outcome driven, and I think that's super important. And if you think about the way we've approached that, firstly with my AI.io hat on, with a piece of technology like AI Scout, the problem we were solving there was a disconnect between talent and the opportunity for that talent to be seen. And of course, all the bias that comes with, scouts not going to particular games, or the fact that, the guy that's been doing the scouting job for 30 years has his own mindset as to what a great player looks like. And so the problem we were solving was making that connection between club and player. And we solved that, we happened to solve that with AI and with data. So it's very much an outcome-driven approach. And I think if you take a step back and think about how we do that across the entire sports infrastructure, entire sports ecosystem, building sports operating systems that solve for the problems that federations, clubs, players, fans have is really where you need to start. And if you start there and then make sure you're using the technology and the infrastructure to deliver the outcomes that you want.
Here we go. Mic issues. Makes a lot of sense, and I actually think you touched on it there, and Ziad touched on this as well, is the adoption side is such a big piece of this, right? So, and I think we've seen over the years, particularly with sports technology, things being created, then almost sitting on the shelf, poor adoption, actually getting them embedded into an organization. I think some of the theses for us there is that because you're kind of building a bit of technology for a problem that used to exist that maybe doesn't exist in the future because AI is changing that, so adoption's always been slow, and AI seems to be amplifying some of that adoption issue, where across the workforce now, not just directly, as you said, Ziad, on the pitch, but actually your workforce, all these AI tools are coming at us, and people jump in, jump out, and then we pay for licenses and nothing happens with them. So I think just coming back to you, Andy, how do you tackle it? Is that the infrastructure play over just product play? Is that solving that issue, or is there more to it?
I think Ziad touched on this in his first answer, and that was, you have silos of technologies, hundreds of people using hundreds of different systems, and those things never connect. And as a result, technology and AI doesn't necessarily deliver the value that has been promised. The thing that we obsess with at Humane Sport is not the what, it's the so what. Coming back to this notion of outcomes. So what changes? What changes in the organization as a result of adopting a piece of technology? What do we do better? How do we create more commercial value? How do we create more engagement with fans? And I say, if you start there, then and you deliver outcomes, then that drives adoption of the technology in and of itself, I think. If you're helping people do their jobs better and helping an organization become more commercially successful, then of course people want to lean in. If I can do my job 10% better, hit my KPIs quicker, or get above and beyond my KPIs, and there's a piece of technology that's going to enable me to do that, of course I'm going to use it. The challenge with all of that is this notion of silos, right? We know that the average football club in the UK has circa 60 systems that store data. And so it's a real pain point for those organizations to even get the single version of the truth, right? We don't know actually much about the player in totality, or much about the fan in totality. We know little bits about the player from the bits of, from the systems that we might individually use. And so we're really trying hard to fix that pain point as well as delivering the application layer. And so, Richard, you talked earlier about the notion of a data operating system for sports. The starting point for all of this has to be to create a ubiquitous layer of data, player data, club data, infrastructure data, fan data, etc. Provide that full 360-degree view, not of the player or the fan, but of the entire organization, the entire ecosystem, and then build the application layers on top of that. And if you do that well, then you have to drive adoption, because people will see the benefits that are going to be delivered through those applications.
Great. And I think obviously a big focus and lens there that Ziad brought up was around obviously the federation and the performance and even the personnel in the organisation. And Andy, you then started to touch on, bigger than that as well, there's other parts of the sports ecosystem that are having this challenge and this problem. So probably switching to you, Danny, where obviously you have a number of IPs that are actually organising sports, running sports, they're running big venues and stadiums and fan engagement side of things. What does technology need to do for them today that's maybe not doing right now? Where should these people be looking to invest their money into that? And what's going on in that space for us?
Yeah, I think Andy just summarised it well, but you did also in your setup earlier on. What we need is a connected digital economy around sport, because we're going to need that connectivity in order to reach into the pockets of consumption that happen and monetize that effectively to drive the sort of the economic flywheel of the sport. So when I look at our IP, I look at what is the digital economy around that sport, and how can we build as much connectivity in that economy as we can. And that starts with participation. If you can get a registration of a participant in that sport and provide utility to that person, their parent, all the way through their customer journey in sport, from participant to fan to parent, over the course of 50, 60 years, then the value of that customer is much greater than an eyeball on a television, right? Which is how the old model used to work. IP would basically get paid a check, they'd go play sports, and then they'd leave the customer to the media platform. We can't afford to do that anymore. We have to own the customer, and one of the great things, or big opportunities we have here specifically, is we don't carry an enormous amount of tech debt in the kingdom as it relates to the sport economy. We have the ability, which a lot of other countries around the world would absolutely relish if they could do it, is to work with someone like Humane Sport who has got the ability to look at the ecosystem more broadly and then build out that operating system that they can all benefit from. But what becomes really important in that is that then when you start to think about the infrastructure projects that are coming online, you know, we've got probably upwards of 50 or 60 sport and entertainment infrastructure projects across the PIF, the Ministry of Sport, others, that will come online over the next sort of 8 years. Having a single platform to which we can engage customers who are attending football matches, going to tennis centres, going to aquatic centres, going to theatres, and start to build that intimate knowledge of that customer behaviour to then serve that customer what we know they like. And to be able to sit back and look at that holistically is just something other countries can't do, because they've got so much private sector influence that they've already gone too far to wind it back. So I think we do have a very unique opportunity in the Kingdom right now to build that operating system for sport and entertainment. I would add that to that, and then the ability to export that. Prove it out here, demonstrate we've got a connected digital economy around sport and entertainment, and then export that, which I think will serve us all very, very well.
Yeah, makes total sense. The idea, you're right, the power of the Kingdom is to be able to move at pace and do that and connect all the pieces together.
And
then show the world
the
how that
governance
happens.
also allows for that, right? A lot of other countries don't have the flexibility in their governance to be able to pull that off. Because I think to Andy's point, if you went to Manchester United and said, we want you to put your database in with Manchester City's database, it's probably a pretty quick conversation, right? Whereas here, I think there is that willingness to work together to build something genuinely unique that will actually serve us all really, really well. And importantly, serve fans and participants and players of sports.
Wonderful. And definitely what I feel it is almost the biggest AI infrastructure play in global sports right now is these topics we're talking about. So Andy and Danny, you spoke a little bit about adoption and what kind of the technology partners and vendors and builders need to do to get adopted. But we've seen it on the other side as well. So now I'm looking at Leandra and Ziad here. So as being part of federations or organizations where your environment, actually in the federation, needs to create conditions for the technology to be adopted, right? So we've got a workforce and a staff that's seeing things evolve all the time. Difficult question, but I'll start with you, Leandro, because you're really staring at me there, so I feel like you've got it. What conditions do you need to create from your staff and your workforce to be able to be accepting of technology, to try things and to be part of that journey rather than just receiving it?
First, you need institutional commitment. If in a federation or a big organization like the Olympic Committee or FIFA or whatever, you don't have an institutional commitment to apply this for the benefit of the development of of your own sports and the sports in general, this will never work. Then you need obviously the technology, but when we talk about technology, and I think it was raised here before, we need to cover with technology from A to Z. It's not useful to bring 20 different modules that do different things that are not interconnected. So that's why, and this is what we were discussing with SIF before, is that you have to connect from the moment that you are testing that talent until the end of the career of these athletes. Why? Because for me, data should be distributed and be feeding all the stakeholders in the middle. It's not that some data is being used by one department or some data is used by another department. So that's why I think that commitment and a concrete and a platform that can unite all these technologies is the most important thing to be able to implement it. And then internally, as in every organization, the most important thing is how we tell the story. Because if the whole system, the whole people who should buy it, should understand that we are all doing this, as I said at the beginning, but for the benefit of the development of this organization, this specific sport, and the athletes. Because at the end, we don't have to forget that everything we are doing with technology is impacting people's life, right? As I said, giving the opportunity to a young kid to become an athlete in the future, but also sponsors, also organizations, also financial investment, and many others.
Ziad, I saw a big nod there when we talked about the storytelling. So, so once the strategy team, which you are leading, has the idea, they know what they want to do, they've got the partnerships in place, that storytelling internally to bring them on the journey. Maybe you can spend 2 minutes talking us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I would like to complement what they've mentioned and the emphasis on storytelling. It's where you connect all the events that are happening within the organization and how you make that story complete, where it doesn't stop, as Andrew mentioned, into it's so what? How did all of this contribute to the main objectives of the Federation, our main goals? And I think this is quite important when we look at it. Like, I'll provide a simple example. Adoption of AI is not quite new to all individuals working in a lot of these sectors. So technically speaking, I mean, we could say 80% of individuals right now are using AI in their day-to-day work. But this is where we start to connect the dots on how are we using it, making sure that how is it beneficial for us when we're using it. This is where we create that platform, where we start to highlight it, understand the supply and demand, that digital economy that Danny was referring to as well. So I think when we start positioning everything and structuring in a way where we get to understand our current problems, yesterday's problems, and future problems that might occur within our whole transformation map and journey to achieving those strategic objectives, it's quite essential to make sure that in partnerships perspective, we are partnering up with the right people as well and throughout this journey. And it's a fair exchange in the end. We're looking at a win-win-win situation. So again, it's about developing a winning team as well on the pitch, but as well, you want to look at it from all of your objectives as a federation, strategic objectives, from mass participation to producing a winning team, as well to creating a nice, healthy, governed regulatory environment for all participants to partake in. And this is where I feel like let's look at it from multiple angles and not just from that siloed view of just scattered dots. We need to connect them all to make sure that we're telling the right story at the right time is very important, but I would say at this stage as well.
Yeah, you make several good points there. I think I'm going to stay with you actually because I think the kingdom and your organisation, so where it's the wider kingdom and lots of different objectives in the kingdom as well as then in football, it's always been very clear and very ambitious on the objectives that we need to get to. Right, so that's always been very well displayed, and it rallies everybody behind a common message, and that's part of that storytelling. But you've got the FIFA lens as well.
Absolutely.
So when FIFA come into this, they've obviously got objectives that they need you to achieve as well. How do those two come together? Like, are they at logs with each other, or do they fit quite well? Great question. So coming into the sector, initially, that was my first question as well. Normally, from a governance standpoint, you start to look at, as you've mentioned, that foundational layer, understanding where the guardrails are. And what's brilliant about FIFA and working under such a federation is that they have over 200 Congress members right now, federations across the globe. Let's say, objectives vary, the capabilities vary as well across all of these nations worldwide. So FIFA sets guardrails, but at the same time, they play an empowering role, an advocate role in terms of pushing for data protection, pushing for as well deployment and having more data solutions to be deployed to enhance the game, enhance the experience for all participants. So from that lens, we had to understand the ecosystem, understand the whole football ecosystem and what you're positioned. And what you just touched upon, which is great, which is shifting that mindset as well as part of the nation's vision in terms of being leaders and pioneers in the industry, and not just reactive following, positioning. As we've mentioned earlier, I need to be more proactive. I need to take more risks, which from a financial perspective, I would say from the sector, we understood that it's quite important to have sandboxing areas, regulated environments to incubate or host these kind of innovative ideas, to understand their potential, their growth, the lessons learned all in all, and how to apply it and adopt it within our ecosystem. So it's that system, once you put it in place, give the confidence to all of our, let's say, digital partners. We try to create that kind of landscape where enables innovation, creativity, problem solving, and at the same time takes us to that leading role that we aspire to achieve.
So this is where I would say the relationship is being formalized in a great way that enables us to move forward, inshallah.
We've got just under 10 minutes left here, so I think what I'm going to enjoy finishing on is from each of you, just 2 minutes on, let's jump forward 12 months, where it's in the investment side of things, where it's government, organisation, federation organisation, product building, whatever it may be, is how do we know we're being successful so far? I think that'd be really interesting. But before that, I'm going to jump to one extra question from you, Andy, just picking up a few things here. So everyone talks about democratising access, and the federations and the organisations or the venues and the fans, we want more access, we want more people to access things. Typically access sometimes means giving things away, right? So how does someone build a sustainable business and still give that access? And everyone kind of talks about the data in that space, and given your background, I think maybe you can spend 2 minutes on the balance between those two, and then we'll get into the future from there.
I think it's a super important point in this world of the digital economy, the notion that we can collect data on millions of citizens. But you have to find a way to do both, right? You want to deliver a commercial business, but bring the people that are engaging with your business, whether that's players or fans, along on the journey with you. And fundamentally, as we've heard, this is not new news, but sports businesses are data businesses. If you think about the role that somebody has, they might be a professional sports person at the weekend, but they might take their kids to a game, they might be an at-home fan, they might go to other venues. If you can collect and collate the data on all of the different personas they have, then you end up with a data set which is immensely valuable for both them and us. And I think increasingly consumers are recognizing that there is a value exchange. I'm prepared to give you some of my first-party data or some of my zero-party data in return for something. And as long as we're mindful of that, then I think both can coexist. If you put some numbers on that, there was a report in 2022 on the value of citizen data in the kingdom. And the number that was used in terms of the value of data, bear in mind this was 2022 when AI was, relatively speaking, nascent, was 13,000 riyals per citizen. And if you then compare that with what Meta was seeing in the same year in terms of the average revenue they were driving per user from monetizing the data, they were $217 per person. So there is immense value in there. And so our job, I think, is to work with the federations and the clubs to help them garner that data from the users, whether they might be the professional sports people or the fans or the visitors to stadiums, but do that in a way which is respectful of the relationship. I think the key point here is that you have to ethically use the data in a way that there is a fair value exchange. And very simply, I think you do that by putting yourself in the consumer's shoes. Would I, as a consumer, be comfortable with my data being used in that way? And if the answer to that is yes, and I can see the value I'm getting back, then of course the two models can coexist. And that really is what's underpinning our thought around building this global sports operating system for the kingdom, and then taking that across the globe, that data backbone.
That's a great answer. Thank you, Andy. So we've got 60 seconds each to bring it home. So we'll just kind of go down the line here, I think. So Danny, next 12 months, if we sat here and did this in 12 months' time, how do we know the last 12 months has been successful?
12 months will go like that. That's part of the problem. We won't get a lot done in 12 months, but we're going to certainly start. I think, as I touched on earlier, I think the opportunity that exists here in the kingdom is so unique. The governance framework that exists here is unique, and I think where we are in our business cycle as it relates to digital transformation in sport and entertainment is early. So we have the ability, I think, to come together as a collective, whether that be public or private sector, whether that be ministries of sport, general entertainment authorities, and really think about our customer as someone that we can really get to know together, and then super serve them with the things we know they like. And I think if we do that, and we've already had many discussions, whether it be through Humane Sport, SIF or other ministry federations, other PIF entities that are building or have built entertainment infrastructure, then those conversations need to keep going, and we need to start putting down some foundations from a technology perspective, data and digital infrastructure that is going to create that operating system that ultimately we can export as a nation. So I think if we're in 12 months' time, we should be a long way down that path.
That's great. Leandro, you're supporting leagues, clubs, federations everywhere at the moment. So what does that look like for you?
My dream in 12 months. I would love to see several countries, national Olympic committees, football associations, leagues, implementing this technology that we are discussing today, humane sports. First, as I said, to give more opportunities, because this technology can democratize the access much more than anything else. At the same time, as I said, not only starting with talent identification, but then going the whole path to professional sports. And as I said before, locally in Saudi, I think the opportunity is amazing, having this idea of having humane sports. And as I said, Surge is investing a lot to position the country as it was supposed to be in Vision 2030 as the main world sports hub, and they are achieving fantastic results. Then under that, as I said, there are some programs for general population. We have a National Olympic Committee very active, but we need to put in place a pathway to find those athletes and to make them perform and to succeed. As I always say, sports, because we're here to discuss about investment. Why do we invest in sports? Because sports is the best tool to position a country in the world. So imagine the value of an athlete on a podium receiving a gold medal and your national flag and your national anthem for 5 minutes in front of 3 billion people watching live.
Special.
So that's why we need to invest in sports.
Yeah. Wonderful. And Andy, I'm going to try and leave a little bit of time for Ziad here.
I'll be super quick. So three things for me. Short term, our passion project was working with Leandro and the IOC in Senegal, the Dakar Youth Olympics in the Q4 of this year. Some of those 46 athletes will hopefully step out on the field of play at that, and that will be a moment in time for us and our business, and the work that we did with Leandro, that will be phenomenal. Beyond that, we have the green shoots of a fantastic relationship with SAF, and are starting to launch our sports operating system in the kingdom. And I think in 12 months' time, you'll see that really starting to get a grip in the and delivering against some of the things that Danny talked about. And then longer term, we have a underpinning where all this started for AI.io and therefore Humane Sports. We have a talent identification platform which we'll use in the kingdom, and thinking far further forward than 12 months, maybe in 8 years' time, a number of the players that step out on the field of play for the kingdom's football team at their own World Cup will be found through the technology that we deploy in the next 12 months.
Great. I think you've been set up well there, because 2034 is a big year, but there's a path to that. So the next 12 months, what does that look like?
Well, hopefully, I would love for us, of course, 12 months from now to roll out and showcase to all of our stakeholders, let's say, pilot initiatives of how we successfully deployed AI as part of our first success stories written, that full story and how it contributes to the whole ecosystem. And my wishful side of me as well is that it also contributes heavily into our teams that are performing on the pitch as well. So we get to also showcase that and invite a lot of these opportunities of our brilliant minds across the nation to contribute to whatever success story we try to write right now during this transformation phase, this transformation period. So in 12 months from now, I see a bright future ahead. I feel like we're unlocking this new dimension and potential of the sports ecosystem, leveraging artificial intelligence, technology, and data analytics. So it's quite exciting. I'm quite optimistic on the future outlook, inshallah, hopefully.
Great. It's exciting.
It is.
Good. Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the stage. Really appreciate all of your time, and thank you, everyone, for listening.